everyone, and welcome back. I'm Rick Fussell and this is the Ingrain Workshop. In today's video we're going to be building a rustic bathroom vanity. That's coming up next here at the Ingrain Workshop. So I'm going to start here at my table saw with a full sheet of 3/4 inch plywood, which is pre-finished on one side, and I'm just going to rip off 17 inches off of one side of the plywood. So here at the table saw, I started with a full 4x8 sheet, and then I just ripped off a piece that's about 15 inches wide. So now I have a nice clean edge on one side, and then I'm going to turn it over and put that edge up against my table saw fence, and then I'm going to cut off the factory edge. My final width for this piece is going to be 1 foot 4 inches, which is 16 inches. So now I have a piece cut at 16 inches by 8 feet long, and this is what I'm going to cut the two sides of the vanity and the bottom of the vanity out of. Next, with my table saw fence set at 4 inches, I'm going to go ahead and rip two strips at 4 inches by 8 feet, and that's what I'm going to make the two top stretchers and the two back nailers from. So out of a full sheet of 3/4 inch plywood that's pre-finished on one side, $44 at my cabinet supplier, I'm able to make a 36 inch bathroom vanity. So really you could probably get two vanities out of one $44 sheet of 3/4 inch pre-finished on one side piece of plywood. So here at the miter saw, I've got my stop block set at 30 inches, and we're now going to cut the lengths of the two sides of the vanity at 30 inches. So the bottom panel we're going to cut at 2 feet 10.5 inches, so I need to adjust my stop. Next I'm going to cut my two nailers and my two stretchers out of the 4 inch lengths or width pieces, and I've went ahead and just left the stop at 2 foot 10.5 inches because that's going to be the length of both our nailers and stretchers. So back here at the table saw, I had a leftover piece of 1/4 inch plywood from one of my previous builds, and that's exactly the width that I need for the back panel of the for the vanity. And then I need to trim it to 2 foot 11.25 inches, and that's what I'm going to do right now here at the table saw. So here on my side panels, I need to cut out an area for a toe kick. So I just measured off the corner 3.5 by 3.5. Now, pro tip, if you don't want to get a lot of tear out, this is going to be the outside of the vanity. The pre-finished side is going to be on the inside because I'm going to have to take and stain this and spray some polyurethane on it to match the rest of the cabin. But a pro tip to minimize tear out is to take, this is a utility knife for scoring plastic laminate, but you could use just a standard utility knife and go ahead and score the edge where you're going to be cutting, and that will minimize tear out. So now, just to recap, I've got the two sides that are 1 foot 4 inches wide by 30 inches tall with a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch cutout for the toe kicks. I've got the bottom of the panel which is 1 foot 4 inches wide by 2 feet 10.5 inches long. Then I've got the 2 nailers and 2 stretchers, 4 inches wide by the same length as the bottom, 2 foot 10.5 inches. And then I've got the 1/4 inch back piece of the cabinet, which is 30 inches by 2 foot 11 1/4. And the reason why that's a little bit longer is because we're gonna cut in some dados into the sides, and then the back piece will slide into that dado. So that's where we're at right now. We've got everything cut, and now we're gonna start drilling some pocket holes to help us out with the assembly process. So here at the table saw, before we drill our pocket hole screws into the parts, we need to take and cut a 1/4 inch dado along both sides, the bottom, and then one of the top stretcher pieces. And how we're going to do that is here at the table saw. I've got my blade set at a depth of 3/8 of an inch using a setup block. And then as far as the distance the blade is from the fence, I'm just using one of the actual stretcher pieces. That way I've got an exact fit for this particular piece, because this isn't quite 3/4 of an inch. I think it's 27/32. So it's not exactly 3/4 of an inch. So to get my distance, I always like to actually use the material itself and put it in there, so I know now I can take and cut the dado and it's at the proper distance from the back and the sides and the top stretcher. That way our back piece will slide in, and then our back nailers will sit flush to the back of the vanity. Next, I'm going to bump out the table saw fence and make another rip on one of the stretchers, and then I'm going to just do a test fit with the 1/4 inch back of the cabinet just to make sure I've got the fit where I want it. And once I've got it where I want it, then I'll go ahead and cut the remaining dados on the sides and the bottoms. Next, I'm going to drill pocket holes on both sides of the stretchers, the 2 stretchers, the 2 nailers, and then on both sides of the bottom. So next I'm preparing for the glue up, and what I've done is I've put a positive stop here where the bottom of my cabinet needs to go. The 2 sides, I simply took the top stretcher and just clamped it in place. That way I get the proper width that my sides need to be. And then I can take my bottom and just bring it up to the positive stops on each side. I'll put a bead of glue and then pop in some 1¼ inch pocket screws. And that will get the bottom in place. And then we'll take and install the top stretchers and then the back nailers. You can see with it assembled how the side dados line up to the bottom dado, and this is where our back panel will slide into the back of the vanity. Next, using some glue and some pocket hole screws, I'm going to fasten the front stretcher to the vanity. Once that's done, I'm going to place the vanity on its back and then install the toe kick in the same fashion with just some glues and pocket hole screws. Now it's time to just slide in the back panel in the dados and then install the back stretcher. As you recall, we did cut a dado in the back stretcher, and that's going to fit over the back panel. And then using glue and pocket hole screws, I'll fasten the back stretcher and then lay the vanity on its face and install the top and bottom back nailers again in the same fashion with just some glues and pocket hole screws. So to give the cabinet some additional stability and some lateral support, I'm going to take and pre-drill and countersink some 1.5" GRK screws from the bottom into the back nailer, and then from the top stretcher into the top nailer. And that'll just give the cabinet a lot of lateral support and make it a lot more stable. So back here at the miter saw, I'm going to cut the stiles for the door of the vanity, and I'm going to cut them at 13 and 13/16. So I've got my stop block set up here at the miter saw, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the stiles. Since I've got 2 doors, I'm going to need 4 stiles. And the 4 stiles are the horizontal members of the door frame. So while I'm here at the miter saw, I do have enough to make to cut up 1 rail. So I went ahead and adjusted my stop to 26¼ inches, and I'm going to go ahead and just at least cut this 1 stile out of this what's left over of this piece. So I've got 4 stiles, 1 rail. I'm going to have to go back over to the table saw and cut them down to 2-inch widths. I'm going to do that next. Then I'm going to have to go back to the store and get some Radidia pine. That's what I made these out of to finish up making the last of the 3 rails. So here at the table saw, I'm just cutting the rails and stiles to a width of 2 inches. So now I have my 4 stiles cut down to a 2-inch width, and then the lengths are 13 and 13/16. I have 1 rail cut at, again, a 2-inch width, and the length is 26¼ inches. I am going to have to go pick up some more lumber and cut the last 3 rails. So what I'm going to do is I'm leaving my table saw fence locked in here at 2 inches, and then I've left my miter saw stop at 26¼ inches. That way when I do cut the last 3 rails, they should be perfect in size to this rail. Okay, so I went to the big box store and reloaded. I've got a 1x5 by 6 foot long piece of Radidia pine. My table saw fence is still set at 2 inches. I'm going to rip this board at 2 inches in width, and then I'm going to go over to the miter saw where I've got my stop set up at 26¼ inches, and I'm going to cut the other 3 missing rails for this vanity project. So here are my 2 door frames. You've got 2 sets of stiles, 2 sets of rails on each door, and I'm just going to attach them using pocket holes. So the next thing I'm going to do is just drill some pocket holes into the stiles, and that's how we'll fasten those to the rails. Again, using glue and pocket hole screws, I'm going to fasten the stiles to the rail. I'm just going to clamp it to my outfeed table here to make sure that the joint is flush, and then I'll shoot in some pocket hole screws to fasten them, and then just work my way all the way around the door frame till I have the complete frame installed. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is prep the door frames for our hinges. Now these are commonly called European hinges. These are soft close, so they don't slam shut when you shut them. And I'll leave links in the video description below to where you can get these. So they come with a template for drilling the 35mm hole in your door frame. And I'm just going to measure up 2 inches. So since my stiles are 2 inches wide, I'm just going to place the center mark at the edge of the stile here, and then mark out and punch a hole. So now I know exactly where to drill the 35mm hole. I'll do that to both hinges on each set of doors, and then we'll go over to the drill press, drill out the 35mm hole, and then we'll be able to set our self-closing European door hinges. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is the finishing process. I don't know how in depth I'm going to go, but these are the products that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using a pre-stain first, and then on the sides of the vanity, I'm going to be using this golden walnut, or I'm sorry, golden pecan stain. And then on the door frames, I'm going to be using this special walnut. And then as a top coat and a finish, I'm going to be using this fast dry polyurethane. So I've got the toe kick here, which is just a 1/4 inch piece of plywood that I cut out. So we're going to stain that the golden pecan. The door frames will be pre-stained and then stained with the special walnut. And then over here on the actual vanity itself, I will pre-stain and stain the sides of the vanity with the golden pecan. So you'll have the golden pecan, and then on the door frames, you'll have the special walnut. I'm also going to stain the face of the carcass, the entire face of the carcass. Since these are going to be full overlay doors, you will be able to see the edge of the face frame about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. But I'm going to go ahead and stain the whole face of the carcass with the special walnut. On the inside, this is all pre-finished plywood. So I'm not going to do anything to the inside of the vanity. And then that's it. Once I get everything stained, I'll probably apply 2 coats of the polyurethane finish on it. So the next thing we're going to do, now that we have the door frame stained and 2 coats of poly on everything, using just a framing square, I'm just going to square up the door frame hinge, and then I'm going to punch out where the holes need to be located. And then we'll pre-drill, making sure not to drill all the way through the frame. And then we'll screw in the door hinges. And then I'll just repeat that process for all 3 door hinges. Okay, so for the panel of the door, I'm using corrugated metal, and I've went ahead and went through a rusting process, and I've got a video that I'll drop in the video description below, or a link I'll drop in the video description below, to where you can see that process, see how you can rust. This is brand new corrugated metal. It does have 2 coats of polyurethane on it, and then on the back I just painted it black. You can probably see some of the shiny corrugated metal kind of bleeding through a little bit. So then I went ahead and just cut 2 notches for the hinges, and now we're just going to pre-drill and just pop in 4 screws to hold the corrugated metal panel in place. And this will kind of give you an idea of the finished look of what the door front is going to look like. So I just took some tin snips and cut the corrugated metal roughly just an inch oversized for the inside of the panel. So I took the dimensions of the inside of the panel opening, added an inch to both ends, and cut it an inch oversized. So now we're just going to go ahead and pre-drill and fasten the panel to the door. Next, with the vanity on its back side, I'm going to take my little 1/4 inch toe kick cover and go ahead and glue this to the toe kick, and then just shoot in a couple of brad nails just to hold it in place till it dries. And once we do that, then we're going to install the doors on the front of the cabinet. So to install the door, I'm going to use a positive stop on the bottom of the cabinet here with just some double-sided tape and then an 1/8 inch shim, and that's going to give me the reveal on the bottom, and then also using an 1/8 inch shim on the side of the door. That'll give me the reveal I need all the way around the door, and then I'll just pre-drill and then drill the hinges inside the vanity cabinet. So now it's time to rip the vanity top, and we're going to just make this out of 3/4 inch plywood. I am going to come back and put a 3/4 inch piece of edge banding all the way around it. So my final width needs to be 1.5 inches smaller to account for the 3/4 inch edge banding on both sides. So my vanity is 36 inches wide. I want a 1 inch overhang on both sides. So 36 plus 2 is 8 inches, minus the 1.5 inches for edge banding, it's 36.5 inches. So that's what I'm going to rip my final width to 36.5 inches. I'm going to trim up one edge, clean it up, and then flip it over, put that edge up against the table saw fence, and cut it down to its final width of 36.5 inches. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the depth of the top. I'm going to take and trim up and clean up one edge, put that edge up against the table saw fence, and then I'm going to cut it to a final depth final depth of 16.5 inches. Then when I add my 3/4 inch edge banding along the front, that'll move it out to 17.25 inches. Our cabinet full depth is only 16 inches. Next, while we're still here at the table saw, I'm going to take some 3/4 inch Radidia pine and go ahead and rip it down to 3/4 inch squares, and this is what we're going to use for our edge banding around the vanity top. So over at the miter saw, I cut 2 miter ends on the front edge banding and 1 mitered edge on each of the side edge banding pieces. And then just using glue and brad nails, I'm going to go ahead and fasten the edge banding to the actual plywood vanity top. So when I installed the edge banding, I made sure to stay proud of the top, maybe a 32nd of an inch. And now here with just the orbital sander, I'm going to go ahead and sand everything flush so the actual edge banding will be flush to the vanity top. And then once I get that done, I'm just going to repeat the process for building a backsplash. I believe the backsplash is 4 inches high, and then I'm going to screw pocket holes to fasten it to the vanity top. So I'm going to be installing black laminate on top of the vanity top, and I didn't show it on video, but to cut the laminate top, you want to oversize it, maybe a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and then all you have to do is basically score it and then bend it and break it. And then as far as applying it to the top, I'm just using contact cement here. Now when you use this stuff, it's pretty potent. So make sure that you're wearing a respirator and all your doors and windows are wide open to let it ventilate. And I'm just going to apply it with a paint roller with a thin foam nap roller on it, and then just go ahead and apply it to both surfaces, both the vanity top, the backsplash, and then also to the back of the plastic laminate. And then you let it set up for 10 to 20 minutes, come back, it should be tacky, and then you can apply the two surfaces. So now with the contact cement tacky and ready to apply both surfaces, I'm going to use scrap wood here just to keep the two surfaces apart until I can get it aligned, the plastic laminate aligned with the top. So I've got the proper amount of overhang all the way around it. And then once I do, I'll start in the middle and work my way out, just pressing the plastic laminate to the countertop and making sure that it gets a good bond. Once both pieces are properly adhered together, I'll take a J roller just to smooth out and make sure that there aren't any air bubbles between the plastic laminate and the vanity top. And then just to clean up any contact cement that might have gotten on the plastic laminate, I'm just going to use some mineral spirits here and it'll clean the plastic laminate right up. Now with the vanity top clamped down to my outfeed table here, I've got a flush trim bit chucked up in my router, and I'm going to go ahead and just route around the vanity top and trim the plastic laminate so it's flush with the edge banding. Next, with a chamfer bit chucked up in my small trim router, I'm going to chamfer an 1/8 inch chamfer all the way around the backsplash and the actual vanity top, and that'll just leave for a nice smooth edge so you won't have any chip out. So here's the finished vanity with the sink and faucet. All in, I think I'm around $150 for this rustic vanity. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please leave it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you like DIY and woodworking projects, then I highly recommend that you smash that subscribe button. It's free and painless, and I also ask that you ring that bell icon. That way you'll be notified of all our upcoming videos. To all my existing subscribers, I really appreciate all the support you give in this channel. Now, I'll leave links in the video description below to where you can pick up all the tools and equipment that I used on this project. I'll also include our Airbnb links to both our cabins up in the Smoky Mountains. I'm Rick with the Ingrain Workshop. Until next time, have a wonderful day and God bless.